everybody, welcome to the Mariah Effect. I'm Mariah. Let's dive in. So today we have a special guest, Mallory. Say hi.
Hello.
I've talked a lot about Mallory. You guys know Mallory very well, regardless of me knowing what I've said exactly about her. But she is my best friend. She is the reason I know all of the Merrills in the first place. And she is, what do we call it? Platonic soulmate?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what she is for me. We have jokingly called each other wives, although it's a joke most of the time. We've definitely considered it.
For insurance purposes.
For insurance purposes, easy living. But I wanted to talk today about identity. And I feel like as much as I have struggled with my identity in different ways, I feel like Mallory has definitely had a journey with her identity too. And I think with it being Pride Month, it's a really important topic to discuss the world as it is right now, which sucks, and how we're kind of managing that and being able to give resources to anybody who needs any help or anything. So that's the stream of the podcast today. If you don't want to hear about that stuff, then you don't have to listen to this podcast or watch my content, because I will talk about the things I want to talk about. So there.
This is not a safe space for homophobes.
Correct. And I'm okay with that. You're okay with that?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what we're diving into today. So I keep wanting to segue into things by saying, so strap in. And I don't know why.
Strap on.
That's a topic for another time.
Is it? Because it's Pride Month.
Yeah, but that doesn't have much to say about identity. We'll talk about sexual desires another time. But anyway, so the main thing that I want to talk about today and make very, very clear is that I am a person that has always made very clear and very apparent to people in my life that I'm a safe space. I feel very, very strongly that I just love people, and it doesn't matter who they want to be or who they want to identify as long as they're a kind person. I'm on board with being their friend, being around them, helping them with whatever I can. And I think I've always made that pretty clear to everybody in my life. I have had a lot of people even recently in the last few years, being able to come out to me, whatever that meant in the moment. And I was starting to get the feeling, why are so many people feeling so comfortable? Because it's not even just coming out to me just in general. It's like I'm the first person that they're talking to about it. And I had a lot of different questions. I've asked some other people in my life about it. And the main focus of it has been that I've made it clear that I'm a safe space and that I am very non-judgmental in my life in general. I'm always there to listen and ask questions if I have them, and very honest and upfront. And so I think that in our life growing up, Mallory has been very on, I don't want to say spectrum, but like sliding scale from conservative to liberal since we met. And that's for a lot of different reasons for her. But I have always just kind of listened and kind of waited for her to
figure out that
figure it out.
Is full of hate.
Yeah. But anyway, I'll let you talk about that a little bit. Coming from conservative raising and religious upbringing and...
Yeah, I guess just growing up, a lot of the values inside my household were very conservative. And initially it didn't feel like that was something hateful. It just felt like there wasn't room for a different perspective. And it was strange because, like, I held those values of, like, conservative values. But all of my friends, I feel, were like on the opposite end. Mariah being my best friend, obviously I don't think you were ever conservative.
Not a day in my life.
And I was happy about that. Like, there wasn't any contention about that on my end. Like, I was like, okay, like, that's fine. We have different perspectives, and that widens, you know, a worldview. Like, the world is better for having multiple perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the more I accepted and listened to the many perspectives of my friends and the people who I valued, including my very conservative family, I think that, like, a lot of the values inside my home, while masquerading as conservative, are, like, very liberal.
Yeah,
where it's like, love
agreed.
Everyone. And then, like, the Christian aspect is love the sinner, not the sin. But it's like, you can just love people. You don't have to get sin involved. So upon, like, accepting that and not allowing the cognitive dissonance to just be a part of me was the decision to change where I sat on, I guess, like a political spectrum. And when that happened, when I stopped endorsing the cognitive dissonance of I can believe two things at once and you can't, that opened gateways for me to accept more things about myself and the people around me.
And I mean, I have never felt, I mean, there's been a couple of conversations that I've had with Dad sometimes that made me very uncomfortable. But for the most part, anytime I was here, outside of the trauma of my childhood being a factor, there was never really a time where I felt super uncomfortable with anything, because all of the reasons why your family has been so religious is about being able to love and care for everyone and being kind and generous. Like, your dad was so super generous, and that's what I was striving for. It's just that disconnect of like being that person, but also putting into the ideals that don't actually equate to the same thing.
I felt that my dad was the influence of like empathy and charity and warm-heartedness, and my mom was a little bit like firmer, like had kind of like an iron fist thing going on, and not like in a cruel way, but in a way that was harder to connect to. And like towards the end of Dad's life, it kind of like went the other way, but like those values were still really deeply a part of him. And so like it's strange to say, because Mom is such like a warm, gentle, like empathetic person. But I learned my empathy, I learned my charity and my good-heartedness from my dad.
And she, like, I think even she made it a point, I think she mentioned this in her eulogy for Dad, where she was like talking about how if there's anything good about me, it came from Roland, which I don't agree. But like, I think she was talking about that, like the empathy and the caring, because she grew up in a very like strict militant household, and Dad grew up in like not that.
Yeah.
You know?
Like between an Asian household, because grandma Obachan tried to like adapt to being an American home, but like it was a militant American home, and she still held on to many of her like Japanese core, like it's part of her identity. So like there's not a lot of like physicality and like the love of like traditional Asian homes.
Yeah.
And then like definitely not a lot of physicality of love in a military home. So I doubt there was like a lot of warm, cuddly, cozy moments for Mom growing up. Like, not that she was in an abusive home by any means, but
definitely very different from the home you grew up in.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't consider physical touch one of my love languages, but when I'm at home, like...
Yeah, she grabbed my boob earlier.
Stop!
Stop! I love that. That better be in a clip. You hear that, Brooke? But yeah, it definitely was something for me to get used to, too, coming into this family and having the, like, touch and, like, physical attention.
Kylan, who I'm related to, he's my cousin. Like, he's a Merrill. He was over one night, and I thought he was Lucas, so I walked up and I was like, and I sat down, like, next to him, and he was like, hey. I was like, oh my god, I thought you were my brother. He was like, I mean, it's not that it wasn't nice, it's just...
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, my bad. It's just like the comfort of a home is different, like, with who you've grown up with and who you consider immediate family. I'm very touchy-feely with you and like everyone that I've grown up with, but like not Kylan, because Kylan and I haven't been that close for very long.
Yeah.
And even so, like I don't think we'll ever get to that, just because like
it's something you build on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like Lucas I'm very close with. He'll do that sometimes with me. Like Erica, Nay, Kyle. I think really the only people that don't really do that very much is... I'm running out of Merrills. Hold on. I don't know Carly very well, so it would be very, very weird if she was like... I would be kind of freaked out.
Carly isn't a Merrill. Carly's a Jordan.
Lindsay isn't always like that.
Maybe
sometimes
don't put
she
that
is.
in the direct episode.
Yeah. Lindsay is sometimes like that, but again, like I'm not as close with her as I am with everybody else. So, but anyway, the point being that you yourself are a very empathetic and caring person. And when we became friends, even knowing that you were a gun-owning family and very, very conservative, it didn't really matter to me because I knew you, like who you were as a person, and I was able to overlook it. And I was younger too, and I think if you were still extraordinarily conservative today, I don't think that we would still be friends, if I'm being honest.
The way that like the world has gone, if I was still conservative, it would have taken me down a specific pipeline where we wouldn't have been compatible. like, not only would you not want to be friends with me, but, like, I probably
wouldn't want to be friends with
yeah.
me.
And that's difficult to, like, say just because, like,
what a wacky world that would have been.
Yeah, because, like, the dissonance between, like, who I was and who I am, I want to believe that, like, even with conservative values, I could still be a good person. But, like, the extremism of the Conservative Party right now just doesn't lend for flexibility in identity or what it means to love someone. Which is crazy. I don't think politics should dictate who you decide to love.
It's definitely something that, like, I genuinely don't know if it's just that we were younger and so we weren't as into research and, like, knowing all the things that were going on, because it's like we couldn't vote anyway, so, like, what was the purpose of learning about all of that stuff in the first place? Or if it truly is that things have just gotten much more extreme.
I think things have gotten more extreme, but I also believe that, like, growing up, I didn't have any reason to question what makes a good person. My parents, in my mind, were, like, good people. And they were good people, like, at that time. The adults in your life weren't necessarily good people, but took you to a place much sooner than it did for me to establishing what is you had to come to these decisions, which led you down, like, okay, I guess that means that I'm more Democratic than I am Republican. And for me, it was my parents are Republican and my parents are good people, so I am Republican. Which, a middle schooler, high schooler, like, before you're able to vote and able to understand politics, crazy to identify a party.
But I think it happens a lot. Like, I think there's so many people that, like, don't do any sort of research, don't look into things, don't actually think about, like, what it is that they're subscribing to. It's just because my family does this. My family is involved in this. I've grown up, like, being a person that believes in these ideals because of my parents. Like, I don't really know what the opposition is. And especially if it's a family that, like, is constantly like, those damn liberals, like, you know, like, you hear that enough times that you start to say it just because it's what your family believes.
Yeah. I'm thankful that, like, I don't feel like my family growing up was that way. We were just kind of like, these are what we believe. Like, you can make your decisions. But, like, you can't, as a kid, you can't really make those decisions. So, like, my family wasn't one that, like, hated on another group. It was just like, this is what we believe.
Yeah.
But identity and not politics.
So anyway, I mean, I feel like politics does have a lot to do with especially how things are going today. Mm-hmm. And that's why I brought it up at all. But on that note, like, the way that I grew up, I knew that I didn't know everything that went into being liberal necessarily, but I knew from the little bit that I did that liberal meant, like, forward thinkers is how it was, you know, subscribed to me when I was younger. And so I was like, yeah, of course I want to look to the future, not to the past. And that's because for me, the past is slavery and inequality and not women's rights. So for me, I was like, yes, forward, because I'm a woman, I'm Black, I want to have rights. And so that's, like, the momentum for it. But then when I started looking more into it and reading more and more and more, I was like, hell yeah, I'm a liberal. Not just like, yeah, I think so. And the other part of that is figuring out my identity too, because there's a lot of things that I believed in high school before being surrounded by people of color, surrounded by people who had different lifestyles, I guess I should say, that I just was like, I just don't understand it, so I'm not going to learn anything about it because it doesn't have anything to do with me. And as time pushed forward, I was like, I need to be learning more about it because I want to be able to, if somebody's talking to me and they're like, I don't get it, I want to be the person that's like, well, you should do this research because that's what I did. And this is what I know if you want that information. That's what it had to become for me because I didn't want to be ignorant anymore about it.
And research really is, like, eye-opening. I understood, like, a lot of the lingo of, like, what the LGBTQIA community, like, what all of those are on, like, a surface level. And it wasn't until, like, I started doing a little bit of research that, like, I even came to understand that I'm asexual. As I looked into, like, exactly what it meant, I was like, oh, shit. And I remember, like, after, like, it was, like, the middle of the night, I was, like, scrolling on my phone, figuring this stuff out, and the next day, I was like, I have something crazy to tell you, and you were like, you didn't know this about yourself? I was like, listen, it's a big moment for me.
And to be fair, like a lot of your asexuality, I also, like in high school specifically, thought to be just like your religious stuff. Because,
well, that's what I assumed.
Yeah.
But, like, that assumption came from the perspective that, like, my experience of life and my experience of, like, emotions in my body is the baseline. Mm-hmm. Like, I assumed that, like, when we would have those, like, law of chastity, like lessons at church where they were like, don't have premarital sex or you'll go to hell. I was like, who would want to do that? Of course. Like, why is this even, like, why are we being taught this over and over? Like, I hear you, I won't have sex. Like,
yeah.
And so, like, in my mind, like, it was just, like, the craziest, like, who puts themselves in situations where it's like, oh, I guess we gotta have sex now. So, like, all through high school, I was like, I don't really understand what the big deal is. I don't get how people are, like, having teenage pregnancies or, like, why all the Mormons get married so young. Like, why do you want to have sex so bad? And when you approach the world in a way that, like, says my identity, like, my self is the baseline of, like, existence, it's very narrowing. Like, you don't recognize, like, what life and existence is to other people. And that's why doing the research and, like, learning about things outside of yourself is very eye-opening. Because when I read about asexuality, I was like, that's not the baseline. My reality is not the baseline. This is what my reality is. And it was weirdly liberating because it changed nothing.
Right.
But it added perspective.
Yeah.
And it gave me a sense of community, even though, like, I live in Utah and I've never been to Pride and nobody else in the entire fucking world is asexual. No.
We're going to Pride this year.
Yeah.
I bought the tickets. But anyway.
And, like, I have a homophobic dad, so,
yeah.
like, what was I supposed to, like, how am I supposed to, like, what does this change for me in my real life? Like, at the time, I was still very, very religious, so I was like, okay, but that just means, like, I'm blessed to not be tempted by premarital sex. I'll find someone, and then, you know, we'll have babies. I'll do the thing, and I'll have a family.
If I have to.
Yeah.
There's an episode on, of Friends, which is a show that we both really loved and appreciated together. And there's an episode where two of the characters, Richard and Monica, are, like, talking about the future, and Monica is like, I really want to have kids. I'm sorry, I need that with someone. And Richard's like, well, I don't want to lose you, so if I have to. And he says, if I have to, like, maybe 3 or 4 times. And she's kind of like, okay.
If you hadn't said,
if I have to, then I would be all on board, but you did. So, and they break up.
Because there are things that, like, you don't want to compromise about your vision of the future. Like, at that time, my vision of the future was getting married in a temple with, obviously, a man, and then, like, starting a family. And it wasn't until, like, I really accepted that, like, that's not something that I actually want. And I had to compromise, like, the stability of a future. Because, like, what is my life now? Like, that's what I've been working towards, like, building towards my whole life. Because, like, religious trauma, that's what is your life worth if you're not building towards a family. So, when I, like, accepted that, it was scary, but in the sense that, like, letting go of something heavy allows you that freedom of movement. It's frightening to let go of it. Yeah. But it is liberating.
That makes me so happy.
Thank you.
I feel like with the way that you kind of came to that realization, it was definitely like little bits and pieces. Mm-hmm. Like you'd figure it out, and then you'd be like, so I'm asexual. And I was like, oh, okay.
You're like, yes.
Absolutely.
that tracks with everything.
Yep,
about
that
your
makes
life.
sense. The kind of the same way that I was when you were like, I think I have OCD, and I was like, yeah, you do, girl.
Okay, well, I don't have a diagnosis. You can't say that. It could just be autism. You don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to dive into that on another episode. But I think that for me, a lot of my identity, figuring out who I was, had to do with growing up in an entirely white family and being Black. And so my journey, very different, but I feel like still ties into this like theme of identity and figuring out who you are, because there's something that somebody told me recently about how we're all just souls in human suits, and that like our what we perceive to be ourselves are not ourselves. Oh, like you're a woman, you're a man, you're, you know, bisexual, you're black, like that's not who you are. You're just a soul inside of that like human suit or whatever. Well, I do understand that like what they were trying to tell me and what they were trying to get at.
Yeah, it just feels a little disingenuous to insinuate that like your shell has nothing to do
who you are. And like I very well could have been not a black person. Like if we're talking about reincarnation, I very well could have not been a black person in a former life, but that has no bearing on like my life, who I am now.
Yeah, like it's disingenuous to say like your soul is like is untainted by the realities of this world. Who we are at our like center, I feel. I'm not gonna like say that like anyone else's worldview is wrong. Just like take into consideration it might not be the end all be all. You've faced a lot of pain because of your shell, like, yeah. And you faced a lot of pain like just based on your circumstances, not necessarily because you're a black woman, but like a lot of it does have to do with the fact that you are a black woman, and that changes how you perceive the world and you react to it, and the level of empathy you can give to the world around you. Like maybe you wouldn't have been as empathetic a person like if you'd been born white. Like I feel it's disingenuous to take something so integral to like our existence now, because whatever comes next, whether we have like shades, whether our souls are just like amorphous energy blobs, like it's not that has nothing to do with now.
Yeah, I definitely, I want to strive to be more big picture than, you know, what's right in front of me, but it's a really hard thing for me to adjust to. Like, with my new job and everything, like, I'm trying very hard to think, like, big picture, how it's going to affect the world, where I'm going to be in, like, 10 years. But I've lived a life where I've had to think about, like, tomorrow, and that's about as far as I can go because of, you know, being sick, because of, you know, being poor. It's just this fight for survival and not like longevity necessarily that I've had to endure. And so like when people talk big picture like that and saying like we're just souls in human suits, like I get the kindness that he was trying to give me in that conversation, but like I do think that if being black is not a part of my identity, if being a woman is not a part of my identity, then I don't know how I'm supposed to get through adversity against me.
Yeah, it feels like a cop-out for like a white man. Because like then you don't, if being a black woman has nothing to do with the content of your soul, then the vitriolic historical hate that the white man has given to the black woman has nothing to do with the content of his soul. And that's not true. Like, the hate that you choose to give, like, that has everything to do with the content of your soul. And the love that you choose to give has everything to do with the content of your soul. And whether or not you're capable of giving that love, whether we like to admit it or not, has a lot to do with the circumstances that we're born into, that we have no control over.
Yeah. And I think like it's an effort to try and make the statement of like kind of similar to the like love is love. You know, it comes from a good place of like we should be accepting of any kind of love, because love is the most important part of being human, is just being able to love each other and to be loved. But like it does kind of make it hard to be like, okay, well, love is love. What are we doing about it? Like, what are the next steps? It's kind of the same vibe of like, well, we're just all souls. Like, it doesn't matter, like, our skin color. It doesn't matter this. It doesn't matter that. And it's like, but it does. It does matter, because that's the world that we live in, and that's how we have to, like, address it. I would love for everybody to just be like, you know what? We're all humans. Like, who cares about the outside? Because we all are just humans. I would love if everybody could do that. But the point is that nobody does. And I'm not going to be not ignorant, but I'm not going to be complacent in the world that we live in and be like, oh, why did that person do that to me? I'm just a soul in the world. Like, no, I'm going to be like, I know why he did that. I know what is going through his head, and I want to make changes to that. So I have to address that.
To the best of your ability, you've got to take like actionable, real, physical steps in this world to changing the way that people perceive. It's not fair, but that is what
But
is
it is
needed.
what it is.
You were recently helping me fill out a LinkedIn because I'm unemployed. Not for long. And in my LinkedIn, I have like the pronoun signifiers of she, her. But you know that like I'm kind of on a journey of they, them. And you were like, do you want it to stay she, her? And I was like, she, her is already rolling the dice with these DEI rollbacks. There are so many things in this life that, like, yes, like, love is love, humans are humans. Like, I would love to have the freedom to just, like, openly explore my gender identity. I can't afford it. Like,
yep. I found out from a person that I interviewed with that because I asked for feedback, I interviewed for a job when I was living in California, and I interviewed for the job in California, by the way, which is a very like diverse state, but I interviewed for the job over the phone, and then we did a video call as well. And on the video call, the person that I interviewed with, like, we got on the video call and they went, hi. Like,
you sounded
surprised
white.
Because I sounded white. So then they were like, oh, I'm so sorry, like, I can't offer you the position, yada yada. And I was like, oh, can you like give me some feedback? I'd love to know why. And I knew that they weren't going to say, oh, because you're black. But the way that they approached it, I think I was wearing a wig maybe or something. I don't remember what I was wearing in the No, I had braids. That's what it was. I had braids. And in the interview, they were like, we just have a certain aesthetic for the office, and we can't have, like, people, I can see that you're a very colorful person. And I was like, colorful, okay, thanks for that.
I mean, there are plenty of protections in place for you to just racistly say, we can't afford a DEI hire.
Yeah.
You could just say it.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna be racist, like, own it.
And I also, like, I also realized, too, that when I apply for things, my last name, which is not black, but Italian, is hard to pronounce. And so...
You have your Mariah Kaylin. Mm-hmm. Both of those sound like relatively white names, like, not necessarily black, like, doesn't have to be white, but, like, white enough, white passing, yeah. And you are, like, at least half white, like, so, like, on, like, a passing glance and, like, with the right filter on.
Yeah. And if I'm being honest, like, I've recently made changes to my life to try and, like, make most of my stuff be Mariah Kaylin, not for that purpose, although I'm realizing that that's been more helpful.
Is your last name, like, publicly known on your podcast?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, because I was going to say it, and then I was like, I don't want to, like, dox you.
I think it is.
Because I was going to say, like, Paliasodi is, like, hey, just you. It'll be very easy to find your footprint online.
Yeah.
And it's hard to pronounce, and it's hard to remember how to spell. Like, I'm sure you got lots of flack for it in, like, high school, where, like, the teachers were like, I'm just gonna call you Mariah.
Especially the teachers that were, like...
Mariah P?
Yeah, the teachers that were so, like, strict that they were like, we're gonna go by last names. I was like, good luck, this is Overland. We are very diverse, and so they would try... And they'd come across my name and be like, okay, you're going to have to explain this to me. And I gave it. And I remember in 8th grade, I had Goodstein Tyler, which was an English teacher for...
No, I remember him. Everyone hated him.
Yeah,
honors. He was an asshole. He was... I wasn't in any of his classes because at the time I still had some difficulties with English. I don't know if you know this. When I was in, like, elementary to middle school, I was actually in... Not like the slow kids, like...
Remedial?
Not in remedial. Like... But, like, a Title I program, which isn't very popular across the United States, but it is something that, like, exists for, like, when you're falling behind, but you don't necessarily have any kind of learning disability.
Oh, yeah.
I was in that for English, for reading comprehension and writing, which is a really interesting part of my lore.
Yeah.
I'm so keyed into, like, reading and writing now.
Yeah, that is kind of wild. I do remember you saying something about how you weren't, like, very good at reading and writing. I didn't know it to that extent.
Yeah, no, I was in a class to help me catch up with my peers. So, like, for most of my elementary/middle school years, I was just, like, in the regular one. Like, I think up to 4th grade is when I was in them. I was at the regular level throughout middle school, but, like, in elementary school, there was like a time during like, I don't know, like there was like a reading period where, like during that I would go to that Title I program and they would catch me up.
I'm trying to remember. It was like a period that was literally just to read. It was like
Sustained
a half an hour.
silent reading.
Yes. Star.
Yeah. Yeah, so by the time like middle school came around, I was like at the level of my peers, but I wasn't yet like at the honors level for anything. Even though like reading and writing is like my one and only passion. It's the only like interesting thing about me.
A big part of your identity.
I wasn't in any honors classes. Goodstein Tyler wasn't even on my radar. But most of my friends were, like, for English at least, like, in the advanced classes. So like I heard all about Goodstein Tyler.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny because at the time I was such a suck that I really appreciated his class because I learned so much in his class. And even when he was being hard, I was actually like doing the work, which I feel, and this feels like so bold of me to say, but I feel like a lot of elementary school and middle school, I was kind of like struggling, not because it was difficult, but because it was too easy. And I just kind of was like, this doesn't matter.
And young minds struggle like when something seems too easy to comprehend that like there is a next step that gets harder. And so they're just like, if a young mind isn't challenged, it's bored. And like it wants to occupy, it wants something a little bit more challenging. Like it wants it, even if like the kid is lazy.
Yeah. When I would write things for his class and he actually had like workable feedback that I felt wasn't just like him being an asshole, it was him like actually challenging me, because most of the time that my feedback was like, this isn't exactly what I asked you to do, and I'm like, okay, but it's better than what you asked me to do, so I don't...
Yeah, I remember one of two things was about Goodstein Tyler. It was either like, oh, he's my favorite teacher because they were suck-ups, or they were like, he's just so mean.
Yep. I had that class with Sam. That's actually the class I met Sam in. He sat behind me because it was in alphabetical order. So Paleosote Pierce. And like...
I just sat in front of you.
I have. But he sat behind me, and I remember one of the first days of class or something, he had us like swivel around to the people behind us to do a project together. And I remember I swiveled around and I was like, hi, I take class very seriously, do you? And Sam was like, yes. And I remember he hated Goodstein Tyler. Like, he hated him so much. I'm so sorry to that man if you're listening
like,
to this.
What? That would
like,
be
it
so
matters.
wild.
Like, he hated you.
My favorite teacher was my 5th grade teacher, and she was stern, but like it was very clear that she cared about her students.
Yeah.
Like she was stern in the way that it was like, that's not what we're doing. She wasn't, I feel like some people might have said she was mean. Her name was Mrs. Castleberry. But like she was just like genuinely a good teacher. She like took time to like explain like, why this was incorrect, or like if you went about doing something a different way, she would like encourage that you did it. Like, this is good, I like this, you do need to show your work. Like, she was a really good teacher. Like, I was a little bit afraid of her, but then like, cause in elementary school, like, that's your teacher all the time.
Yeah. We
warmed up to each other, like. So I think there's like a difference between being a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Sorry, you might have to censor that.
No, it's okay, we'll just make this episode explicit.
And you know, a strict teacher. Like, you can be strict and stern without being the worst person.
Yeah. And I'm sure that like some people, when he gave that sort of constructive criticism feedback, that were like not happy with hearing that and would kind of talk back, and then that's when he'd be like, okay, well, you're ugly. Like, I don't know if that's true. That's something that somebody told me one time.
Yeah, he does. But, yeah, I heard a lot that he would snap back.
Yeah. So I don't think that he was a good teacher in that aspect, because you need to be able to keep your cool regardless of like teenage attitudes.
And like in fairness, we ask a lot of our teachers. So like we're shitting all over this man.
I'm pretty sure he had like a mass majority of classes, because he had like, I think he did the 7th and 8th grade advanced English classes. He also taught Latin. He also did like a couple of other different...
Taught Latin.
Yeah, I think he also taught a couple of different like extracurricular writing classes. So I think he had a really full schedule too.
It's probably just to make ends meet.
Yeah. Finding the compassion for people is part of the podcast, so that's a good thing to talk about.
I highly doubt that this man who, in his heyday, had like a very full schedule full of like, shit-eating like teenagers, like is gonna take the time to like, I remember Mariah and listen to your podcast where you just shit all over him. But like,
I don't think I've spoken to him since like the 9th grade.
Yeah, it's healthy to be like angry a little bit on people who like aren't gonna feel like the blowback of that. Like, of that hatred. We can recognize, like, teachers don't get enough respect, like, and I'm sure that it was difficult on him with a very full class load that he probably had to do just to, like, make ends meet so that he could get tenure or some shit, like...
Yeah, plus Prairie was, like, jam-packed full of kids. I think in my class alone for a middle school was, like, 800 kids. Graduating class for 8th grade, I think, was what it was. That's a lot of kids for just one grade level in a middle school.
Yeah. All I remember about middle school was that the initials were PMS, and we got a lot of shit about that. Welcome to PMS, here's your first period.
Yeah, your first period.
That's all I remember. Like, you're like, it was a huge graduating class, and I'm like, Prairie Fairies.
See, and that's the difference, is what we paid attention to.
Well, I was in the track and field team. That was the last time I was in sports.
Jocks, yeah.
I don't know that I would have considered myself a jock. I was still pretty introverted. Like, it's when I was, like, coming into my own introverted nature. And I didn't know what to do, like, with myself during the track meets because I didn't really have any friends on the track and field team. I was just like, but, like, all the opposing teams would be like, Prairie Fairies. And then, like, I'd hear them saying, like, PMS, first period, like, that kind of stuff. And I was like, mostly, I didn't know what PMS was. So I was like...
Anyway, identity. No, I'm just kidding. But
I wanted to cut my uterus out for a long time.
When in middle school, like circling back, kind of tying in middle school, in 8th grade, I had a teacher, I cannot for the life of me remember her name, but she was like a theater teacher. And for a long time at
Is it
Prairie,
the one that was like trans?
I don't
Oh no,
think so.
she was in
That was in high school.
And she was like the piano player.
Yeah. But in middle
that was like
school,
my first exposure to like a trans person in real life.
Yeah. In middle school, I remember her first name, which we won't say here.
We're not gonna dox her.
Because of some other things. I remember when I was trying to sign up for classes, and I had done kind of theater outside of school for a while, not really within school, because Prairie didn't really have a theater program before she came into it. And they were trying to get us to do, like, sign up for the extracurriculars. And I remember walking to the guitar table, and I was like, I'm gonna sign up for guitar, and her table was right next to it, and she was like, do you want to do guitar or do you want to do theater? And I went, I'm sold. No, that was it. And so I went to the theater table and we started talking, and she helped me a lot because I was really struggling with home life. I was struggling with a lot of different things. That was when everything happened with Frankie, which we'll get into on another podcast episode.
Yeah, that's not about identity.
But I was really struggling, and she helped me with a lot. She gave me a bunch of books that I don't know that I still have the actual copy that she gave me, but one of them was a book called Mercy that was about mercy killing, which was like, you gave that book to an 8th grade girl. Had a lot of stuff in it, but she gave me a book that was about this queer couple, and I remember reading it and I was like, this is the best book I've read in my life, and I can't remember the name of it because I don't have it anymore, and I have had a lot of things happen that make my memory really shitty, but it was such a good book, and it opened my eyes to the world of like books that were about romance. I think she is the reason that I kind of got launched into romance a little bit.
No,
not
romance.
yet. Not yet. Romance at the time.
No, there's a difference. I can read romance.
But I have always found, bless you, I've always found that I find those type of books more intriguing than a lot of others, because I feel like there's so much more, this sounds terrible, but there's so much more struggle to their relationship and like to the story. It's not just kind of like, oh, like boy meets girl. Boy,
it was your introduction to like
girl,
almost like enemies to lovers, because because like a lot of what makes a story like enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, whatever, interesting is the adversity that like they have to overcome in order to get to that place. before like the tropification of romance, where we have these like terms for tropes. You just had this queer couple really struggled to have love.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. You're like, for them to overcome all the odds so that they can love each other.
Yeah. And it really influenced like my everyday too, because like there's stories that like friends of mine who are queer will tell me, and I'm like, go get him! Like, you can do this! Like nothing can stop you! Who cares? Who cares that his family doesn't know he's gay? Do it anyway!
It must kill you that your best friend doesn't have any romance in her life.
It's actually really funny that you say that, because I was having a conversation with somebody where they kind of asked me about your love life, and I was like, love life? And I was like, I'm just kidding. I think she's dating this person. And they're like really like interested in trying to figure out like, okay, well, does that person not want to have sex? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, neither do I. Like, I feel like, so like I am seeing someone, and we've been seeing each other for almost a year now, but like there was that like off period where like dad was dying. So I was like, I can't do this. And he was very patient. Like, he's a very good guy. Like, I like spending time with him.
Yeah.
I would like to see where a future with him goes. And when we like first met, I tried to make very clear that like I'm asexual and I don't want, like, even were we to like, if he wanted to get married in the future, I would never want to like consummate. I tried, like, without saying those words, to be clear. Like, I think what I said was, it's difficult for me starting new relationships, trying to find someone who's okay with the level of physical intimacy that like I'm comfortable giving, because I am asexual. And I'm pretty sure I said those words.
Yeah.
And like, we're still together.
Yeah.
So like, I think he's okay with it.
Yeah.
But like, we haven't had another conversation about it.
Yeah.
So there's always that like fear, which is, it's very difficult when you identify as someone who doesn't want something that like is almost like base human existence, like a part of being human and existing. For so many people, for like the majority of people, is hunger, exhaustion, and horniness. It's not that I'm not human, it's not that I don't, occasionally get horny, but even in those moments, I don't crave another person's touch. Like, I don't want someone else to touch me. And it's scary to think that, like, with romance, people have an expectations towards sexuality.
Yeah.
And it makes it puts a damper on finding new relationships, because there's, like, even if they are 100% crystal clear and never want to, like, take it to that further step with me, in the back of my mind, I've got this, like, trauma of, like...
Well, like, how could they not?
Yeah, that's like, that's where my brain goes. Like, how can they not? How can they be okay with just me, with my unwillingness and inability to give them something that's integral to being human, which, like, categorizes me as subhuman. And that's not fair to me, and that's not fair to the people who choose to be a part of my life in that romantic sense. But it's something that I have to work through. Like, that, like, okay, we're holding hands, okay, we're kissing. Do they want more? Is this okay that this is all that I want? It's scary finding someone who will accept your identity, not just on a friendship level, but, like,
more than that,
on an intimate level.
And I think, I mean, I don't have the same issues, because obviously I'm not asexual, but like, for me, it's hard to see how someone like who is with you wouldn't be able to like you just kind of figure out your own intimacy, like what intimacy means for your relationship. And maybe that's me thinking about it in terms of like, well, it's not me, but like thinking about somebody else, because for me, I definitely do need that in a relationship. But
I feel that we've had this conversation. It's totally 100% in my mind, even as like the person who doesn't want it, fair to say this is one of my baseline needs in a relationship. And it's fair for me to say this is one of my baseline needs. And if those baseline needs don't align, it is okay for the relationship to end. That makes me sound cold-hearted a lot of times.
I don't think so.
To the person who, like, wants to try and make it work, they're like, you're not willing to give a little. It makes me sound very cold-hearted, but I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not.
You can't compromise your body. You can't compromise your your level of, what is it called? Ability? I don't know what to say for that, but You can't compromise on things that are needs.
Yeah, and that's why I try to establish it at the very start of a relationship. It's like, in the past, before I understood this about myself, like, it wasn't something that I knew to establish going in. And so we would get to a point in a relationship where they would want more from me. Not necessarily sex, because I was, like, Mormon, and so, like, the people I was dating were Mormon, but, like, there was, like, desire that I was unwilling to, like, reciprocate, and so, like, I think most of the time I'd get scared and just, like, push him away and end it, and I'm sure to them, like, it felt like it was out of nowhere. It probably felt callous, like, and I recognize, like, that is the reality for them, like, that I was heartless in those moments, and it's what I needed. I'm not going to take those actions back or, like, look down on myself for that, but, like, their reality is that, like, things were going good one day and then I ended it.
That's because you do a lot of your considerations and thinking internally. And then once you've come to a place, you've come to a decision, that's the end of it for you. And, like, for a lot of, and I don't mean to be like generalistic, but for men very specifically, they need a lot more conversation involved when it's coming to something like that. Otherwise they feel like it came out of nowhere.
And, like, I knew even, like, in those moments, like, this probably feels a little like I blindsided you.
Yeah.
But in fairness, sometimes I feel that, like, the cold shoulder I was giving you and, like, the curtness I was giving you, I feel that's a pretty clear communication that I'm annoyed with you. That's a different story for another time.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like for me, the biggest thing that makes it hard for me to understand people who are adverse to entire populations of people, the hardest thing for me to understand and wrap my brain around is the why of it. Because I feel so strongly that it's, like, so simple and has so little to do with anybody else. Like, you don't want to be with somebody who's asexual? Don't. You don't want to go to a gay club? Don't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard for me to understand what their point is. And I saw this video, which I'm gonna clip into the podcast here, where this woman, she was talking, she comes from a religious background, and she was talking about, like, what this is all about, like, what it is for, because she said it's evil, it's hatred, it's not about the kids, because that side that is saying it's for the kids are also not doing anything about guns in schools. They're also not doing anything to actually feed children, because they're taking away the programs that feed children who can't afford to have school lunches. It's not about our community, because what are they doing for the community? It's not about keeping the restrooms safe, because straight conservative men are the ones that get arrested for hurting women in bathrooms more often than any other population of people. Demographic of people, thank you. Like, she goes through it and I'm like, wow, like, that's so well put and so well said how she came across it, because that's really what it is. It's like, it's just about hatred and coming up with excuses to be hateful.
Yeah, and I, like, not to make excuse for the hateful. I don't think that they recognize that, like, what they're feeling is hatred. Like, because having been down that dark part of my past, I used to be fairly transphobic, but I never would have put that, like, label on myself. Like, I had a friend, like, in my first semester of college that, like, a fantastic trans man who asked me, like, flat out, like, so, like, you're Mormon, because at the time I was, I'm trans, what's your, like, view on that? And, like, I flat out said, like, well, like, I don't agree with your, like, lifestyle, but, like, that's fine.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Like, I flash back to that on the regular, and I'm like, I want to find him and apologize. But, like, I also don't want my healing journey to be their burden.
Yeah.
So, like, no, even though, like, I know, like, where their Facebook is and stuff. Like, I think we're Facebook friends. I don't want to put that on them. But, like, I am so sorry that, like, that was a part, that's a like, I genuinely believed that.
Yeah.
And I never would have attributed that to hate. If I had been, like, a voter at that time, I would have voted against a lot of gay rights. And I never would have attributed that to hate. But that's what it was. Just because I can't identify that's what it is doesn't mean that's what it, like, wasn't what it was. And I think that, like, the majority of people who are, like, so goddamn hateful are afraid and unable to coalesce that, like, when I went through my own cognitive dissonance of, like, I love people, I won't vote for them to be able to love people. I came out on the other side today of, like, you can't have it both ways. You have to stand by that love. And that's who I am today. But some people just don't ever come out the other side of that. And that's terrible. And that they can't recognize that it's just hate.
A lot of people create a reality that they can live with, and that's not always the reality that is happening. Everybody does that. I mean, even there's people in my life that are addicts that would not classify themselves as being addicted to anything, because to confront that they are an addict would mean that they have to confront all the terrible things that they do.
Yeah. Like, once you acknowledge that, like, these two things can't coexist, you have to do something about it. So if you just don't acknowledge it, if you don't acknowledge that it is hate that you are putting out into the world, that is a part of your identity, like, then it will always be a part of you. If you don't acknowledge that, you can't overcome it.
And the hardest thing is that most of the time for people to recognize the reality that they've built for themselves is not true is either some horrible, awful bottom event to happen to them.
Speaking towards addiction.
Yeah. Or they have to actually wake up with the realization that that's what is going on. Like, they have to be the ones that make that choice, make that decision. Because you can't, like, all you can do is control yourself. You can't control other people at all.
For me, like, this journey on identity, not just, like, my sexual identity, but, like, my gender identity, it's been exciting and joyous and it's happy, but, like, it's painful and heartbreaking and lonely. My dad will never know who I am, and even if he were alive today, I don't think that I'd have the courage to tell him.
Yeah.
And a lot of embracing identity and being someone safe to, like, identify with is keeping secrets and being lonely and embracing, like, the happiness in the sorrow. Because, like, as lonely as it is to not tell people because you're afraid, I'm happier. Like, I don't have a solid plan for my future anymore. I'm not gonna get married and have kids. I don't want kids. I don't want that marriage anymore. But that's my truth. Like,
yeah,
I'm me in a way that other version of me never would have been. Identity is scary.
Yeah, it is really scary. I think that for a lot of people, like, even if the world was open and loving and accepting, I think finding out who you are and dealing with that is just baseline painful, baseline scary.
Acknowledging these things about myself meant I had to look at myself and say, you were transphobic. Yeah. That's a hard thing to admit, especially as someone who is, like, a staunch ally. Yeah. Even before, like, going on my gender identity journey, staunch ally, transphobic. Those two things shouldn't be allowed to coincide, and when I had to pick a path, it was scary and painful, but good.
And I think that at the end of the day, like, with all that we're saying about this, like, the point of it is that Mallory is a good person. She, like, has always cared about other people, has always done her best to do what she finds is the right thing to do, and yet she's gone on this journey where she didn't always do what was considered the right thing, or what we think to be the right thing now. And people are not just black, not just white. They're a mix, which I get to say because I'm mixed. Anyway,
so am I.
Like, it's a scale, and just because somebody does something that doesn't align with your beliefs, doesn't align with what you think is the right thing, doesn't mean that they're altogether cruel, altogether evil. It's just like, maybe they're not educated, maybe they don't know what they're doing. However, it is hateful acts. It is causing a lot of horrible things to happen. DEI going away. I just read yesterday that the specific hotline that they have for suicide prevention for trans youth is being taken away. It'll be gone in September. Things like that happening that are scary and sad and infuriating. But I also found out through finding that Canada has a hotline that they have transitioned to also be for American people as well to be able to use because of this happening. So it's a new reality that we have to adjust to and we have to live with until we put somebody else up at the top. And it's just...
And even in that, like, it'll take a while.
It's going to take a while. Everything
like,
is an adjustment.
Even if the ideal, like, even if Jesus Christ himself came down and became the new head, the new person at the top, it would take a while.
And and one of the things that I realized too with having to talk to people about what's going on in the government, what's going on in politics and things like that, is that the assumption is that what's happening now is because of the president that's at the top right now. It takes forever for those things to go into effect. Things that are going down right now could have lasting effects until 2032. That's just the way that it works. And so even with a new president that we'll have at the top, their new things won't go into effect until 2033. It's just the way that it works. And because people don't understand that and don't recognize that, they're blaming or giving praise to whoever's at the top at the moment because of things that are happening right now. And that's just not the way that it works pretty much ever. So it's depressing and it's sad and it's horrible and it's awful, but the best thing that we can all do is stay informed about what's going on so you know how to keep yourself safe, and keeping yourself up to date on what you can do for your community if that's something that you're interested in. And I'm going to put a bunch of different resources for all the information that I have, and I'm going to make sure that it's all on the website, the-mariah-effect.com. And I really hope that anybody that listens to this will be able to enjoy the episode and possibly think about things in a different way than they did before. That's just always my plan and my hope.
And if you're just looking you feel comfortable in your identity, you're not queer at all. For the most part, Mariah isn't either, and she is the safest space that I know.
Yeah.
And it just has to do with being open to new information, receiving it with love, and willing to, for me, being able to talk with Mariah about things, even if she doesn't have the information, I'm confident that she'll go into it with an open mind and look into it.
Yeah. I always do research. I always try and find resources for people. That's the reason that I do that for the podcast always, because this is less about me and it's more about everybody else. And I genuinely love being able to celebrate the people in my life and the people who aren't in my life that have had to struggle the way that people in the LGBTQ plus community have had to struggle. And I think that celebrating where we have gotten to and where we can still go, that's why I celebrate it. And I mean, I'm on my own journey. Who knows? With some time, maybe there's something else, a part of my identity that I haven't fully connected with yet. Who knows? But as for right now, I am a strong ass ally.
Yeah, I might be asexual, but I'm pretty sure I'm also biromantic, so there's always more to uncover about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for listening, you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Mallory, for being on the episode with me.
Never again.
That's funny. She's going to be on it again. I'm also going to list some books that I have and that Mallory's read about pride and...
Specifically for asexuality, if you're curious about learning more about your asexual friends, or you are curious about where you might fall on that spectrum, because it is a spectrum, the book Ace by Angela Chen is very good. So is Come As You Are, but that's not necessarily about asexuality. That's just about being comfortable in your body and understanding your own brakes and gas for sexuality.
She's so good. I read books and I forget the name of the book 2 days later. That's insane. That's why I put it at the end of the episode.
It'll be somewhere.
It'll be somewhere on there because I need some time to collect it and put it together. But
those are just two books.
This is a really good book too. I'm trying to figure out how to point to it.
Song.
Isaac's Song. I posted about that on my LinkedIn, and I thought that was a really incredible book as well.
Yeah. The ones that I listed are just ones that I was reading at the time that I was coming to look into things about myself, so they just kind of stuck with me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully this won't be too long of an episode. Bye.